Go Dwayne.
Hey everybody. Oh, thank you very much. I should update that because, yeah, that was a while ago I spoke at MIT. That's the time I met Richard Stallman, and he's a weirdo. But that's a different story. That's a whole different talk. I highly recommend getting the slides for this because I have 109 slides in 40-minute talk, or 50-minute talk, and I go fast. So I was hoping there would be more people in the room for the very first part. I know people will wander in. But if you really want to go see the other talk, I would not be offended. This is your moment of like, oh, okay, I can just see this. And if this makes perfect sense to you, and you understand why this is like very important, then you can go feel free to watch something else or go on with the rest of your life. So, who here works in security? Cool, 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 cool. All right. Who here is a developer? Awesome. Anybody in DevOps? Raise your hand if you have ever deployed something to the public-facing internet and someone's touched it. Yeah, yeah. Did you push it through, like you designed something like this? I used to be a Drupal developer, so I would have traditional up on top. I'd run, actually I was running PaaS at that point, Platform as a Service. So I was letting this platform that I used to work for called Pantheon, I was letting them take care of all the back-end stuff, and I was just doing the Drupal stuff up front. They were even hosting all the database stuff for me. Did you use like a process that looks something like this? This is just a Git flow. This is I'm pushing my builds up and they're failing, and then I'm fixing them and I'm pushing up, and then it fails somewhere else, and then I fix that and I push it and push it, and eventually it gets out there deployed to the world. Yeah, that's what developers do. That is what they do day in and day out. And they don't do it by saying, hey, do it the securest way humanly possible. They say, do it by now or don't get paid and go work somewhere else. And AI is going to take your friggin' job. Ooh. And so when they end up doing things like this, which I know is hard to see on a screen this small, but that says insert your bearer token here. This is code that ChatGPT gave me 2 days ago when I said, how do I do a basic a basic API call in PHP? Last week I spoke at a PHP conference, so I got PHP on the brain again. I love PHP. PHP 8.3 is amazing, and 8.4 is going to blow your mind. Yeah, seriously, it can do everything Go can do, but better. And we have Laravel and the spaceship operator. Okay, enough nerdy shit. So that's the real thing. So is it any wonder that they get really annoyed when people in security go over and say, hey, you did this wrong? Because they didn't care. Not that they don't care about security. It's that they got told to do a thing by a date, and that's what you were on their ass about this, and now they're just mad at you. All they want to do is go home and play Monopoly with their family. Like, I don't know if it was Monopoly, I don't know what they were actually doing at their house, but like, I love Monopoly. That's why I love this picture. I looked up family playing Monopoly, and I use this on a lot of talks because this is the goal. If you think the goal of security is to pop boxes and be cool, do something else with your life. This is the point of security, to make sure that people can get home to their families and do their friggin' jobs without having to stay up till 3 in the morning because their boxes got popped and their domain authority is like now somebody else's problem. So this talk is about what we need to tell them about not securing the human access to the world, but the horrible, horrible problem of this non-human. Because there's only 2 things in the world, a potato and not a potato. And for some reason, we as an industry have recently settled on this concept that there are humans and non-humans. That is about as helpful as there are people and not people. That's literally what it says. Makes me mad. I'm Dwayne, I live here in Chicago. I live over by Wrigley a little bit. I help people figure stuff out. That's my entire mission in life. I am very happy to help you figure out some of this stuff. I warn you up front, some of this stuff is like experimental and out there that I'm going to be talking about, but it's also IETF stuff coming down the pipe that you really need to be aware of about how authentication works and how we mix up off the Z and off N so hard it hurts my brain. I'll talk about the company I work for at some point in here, I promise, but I don't care. Right now, I care about talking to y'all. So if you ever want to connect with me, there's my socials. And again, I'll put the slide short URL up at the end. And I always push all of my stuff online. It's already online for you. Quick shout out to the sponsors. Without sponsors, we wouldn't be able to afford to be here, and we couldn't have B-Sides, like, period. This is, how much did anybody pay for this? Like 50 bucks? Yeah. I'm going to Identities tomorrow. That's like the cheap ticket's 1,200 bucks. Like, it's ridiculous how cheap we can do this for. And thank you to all the sponsors out there. And thank you to the community sponsors, because we are truly a community event. That means something. So back to the point. Humans versus non-humans. What's the difference? Well, hopefully I don't have to explain what a human is to anybody in this room. But in short, you have a fingerprint that you can use to unlock a passkey, or you can MFA. From my point of view in the world, that's what I care about. You have a retina I could scan, you have some identifiable thing that's going to be true from moment A to moment B. IETF has this thing I'll talk about later. Don't worry about WIMSE right now. We'll talk about it later. I love the name, but we'll talk about it later. But a workload. A workload is a running piece of software executing for a specific purpose. Typically, it interacts with the other parts of a larger system. It could run for any amount of time. It could run for seconds. It could run for days or years. OWASP says non-human identities are this. It's a long explanation, but basically, because OWASP sees the whole world, and thank goodness they do, from the point of the application security is in there, in the name. We're not talking about your devices at this point. I mean, we are, because that's what's running the application, not the network. Because, well, it is, because what else do you have a network unless to get to the application and back? But their whole thing is, look, these things have to authenticate. And most of the time, they're using a secret. This report bothers me for a couple reasons, because what's an identity-related breach? I had to stop and think about this, and I've reread this report like multiple times, and I love CyberArk, but that's a problematic word in my opinion. But instead of going directly at a system, directly through the bits and bytes and the vulnerabilities and exploiting the shell or whatnot, you are acting as if you are something else or someone else. You are acting on behalf of an actual identity. Now again, with humans, you're acting as a human, but this is what this is. Like, I'm gonna go in and pop or reset someone's authentication, including the administrator, and reset their password on a WordPress site because I paid for a specific paid-for theme that was this vulnerability. This is from last week, by the way. This is the 20th this came out on Bleeping. That's one kind of identity breach. Like, you have breached the person's identity, and now that's an identity attack because you were acting as if you were that administrator. This is more common, though. Things where people get an API key into a system, and then they figure out how to move around it as the administrator or that identity. And they're behaving as if they're their identity, but they're not doing what the identity is supposed to be doing. They're hacking the identity, literally. It's an identity-based attack. So why am I talking about non-humans when I'm talking about identity? Because in 2022, CyberArk also put out a study that said, for enterprises we talk to, it's 45-to-1. That's what that is. 45 identities that are machine identities to every one human identity in the system. The guess now is closer to 100. Their number, the last report, was 89. And I think that's undercounting some stuff. And I think they talk to only certain size of companies. But that was also last year's data. We now live in the world of agentic AI. Agentic AI means, oh, it's building itself now. We're deploying APIs that human beings never write, that human beings never read. And it's happening right now. It's terrifying. Because we didn't lock down this problem of how do we actually guard against this identity breach problem with machines yet? Now, I'm not one of those people to come up here and say a bunch of scary stuff and say there's no solution for this and oh, just worry. No, that's the whole rest of this talk is what do we actually do about it? What do you actually talk to your developers about? How do we fix this together? Because we can't fix this from security alone. Operations can't fix this. Your exec team can't fix this. Your IM team can't fix this. Together, you as an organization can fix this. But it's going to take the right people, knowing the right things, using the right tools, following the right processes, and having the right conversations and learning the right levels of trust. OWASP this year, this is the latest of the top 10. OWASP top 10 for non-human identity risks. We're going to go through these, but not in the order you think, because I think it's three areas of concern, not 10. It comes down to these three: ownership, long-lived secrets, and technical complexity. I really debated which order to talk about these in because I have a solution for one of them. The others I don't, but I have ideas. But if I had solutions for that, I would be a billionaire and speaking at a different event. Who owns NHIs? Ownership is the first hardest problem of all of this. Seriously, who in your organization owns Active Directory? Yeah. Go in your IT department and just say, hey, just curiosity, who coordinates and like consolidates down our Active Directory stuff in Intra? And they'll just stare at you. They might have an answer. It might be a single person. Who knows? Who owns the risk of that same NHIs? People that actually go in front of Congress and judges are the CISOs and security folks. Like SolarWinds, the CISO or CEO did not go to jail. Well, neither did anybody else, but that's because it got stayed at the last minute. But it was CISO. Why isn't it the IAM person? Because there's a person who should own identity access management, because hopefully you're not doing just all your own hiring per department, not talking to each other, and someone has to onboard them and give them rights and permissions to machines and services, right? Well, that works for humans, because we've been doing that literally since the beginning of computers, but who does that for the machines? IANS, the organization that does research into executives, they say that to get to before we have a 55% chance or higher that this person exists at an executive level or reports directly to an executive level is the $5 billion revenue mark. So if your company makes less than $5 billion in revenue, this person probably doesn't actually exist in a way that's meaningful enough for the conversation where the CISO turns to them and say, what are we doing about this? And then that person is organized very differently depending on who you talk to. Ford and GM do it very differently. Same role, same exact idea. But if we don't get everybody on the same board, if everyone get in the same buy-in that we have to do this, it's just going to be another case of screaming in the wilderness, and we're going to be in WAF rules from 2002 again. I think ownership comes down to this. I know it's hard to read from this distance. This is about the smallest font I'm comfortable using in a slide, and now it shows. This actually comes from Dear Abby. I love Dear Abby. I read the Sun-Times cover to cover every day, and Dear Abby is one of my favorite sections. This is from years ago, Golden Rules for Living. So if you open it, close it. If you turn it on, turn it off. If you unlock it, log it up. If you break it, admit it. If you can't fix it, call in someone who can. If you borrow it, return it. If you value it, take care of it. If you make a mess, clean it up. If you move it, put it back. If it belongs to someone else, get permission to use it. If you don't know how to operate it, leave it alone. That doesn't apply to you guys. But if it's none of your business, don't ask questions. I also don't agree with that one. But these are generally good rules. So what do you actually tell your developers? I mislabeled this talk because I thought it would trick people into saying, here's the magic words you tell a developer, and they just magically get better at security. And those magic words do exist, but they all come in the form of questions. This is what to ask your developer, so you can get on the same page with them and help to do this together. Because if you don't do this together, you can't do it. Just give up now. Just might as well go bag groceries. Ownership. Hey, when this is improper offboarding. You have an offboarding policy. At some point, you will not show up to work anymore, and your access rights will get cut off. I hope. I hope you have an offboarding policy. It's generally a good thing to have, and almost everybody has this. What about your non-human identities? You created a brand new API. Awesome. When do we turn it off? No one's asking them this. This is not a conversation they are commonly having. Do you know how many zombie APIs exist out there? I've heard plenty of security talks about offensive security, like going in and finding old API endpoints that just sit there. Like, yeah, it's still active. I can still get into the root of this thing. Like, no one thought to de-escalate. This still runs as root. This Kubernetes cluster from a year ago, no one thinks about it. It's just still running, and the API's still up. Why didn't it go out of service? Oh, because there's no offboarding plan. Hey, developer, what are we doing about that? What's our plan there? When do we sunset this thing? Overprivileged NHIs. This one bothers me so much because this is so hard and it's so pompous and arrogant to say, well, why did you give it so many permissions? Again, they're getting yelled at, do X by Y date, not make sure you did it right. Who has ever actually gone through the entire permissions list for GitHub apps? I gave up halfway through because it is page after page after page after page. That's how we ended up. I'll get to this report later. I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself on this report, but this is where it fits in the talk, in my opinion. The keys we found laying around out in GitHub public, 99% had full access or read-only access. Wait a minute, no, that's not the case. Read-only access is good, but full access 58%. That's the number that scared me. But 96% of tokens for GitHub tokens had write access. GitLab people generally are safer with GitLab. I don't know why, but they are. 95% of GitLab tokens weren't locked down to a single repo. They were like full org. You could just get in. And that's just GitLab. AWS, exact same boat. Like you can get in the report. I'll throw the link up later. Talk about it in a different section. But this is hard. Getting the right permission for the API key to work right is just hard. How do we make that better? We'll get to that, I promise. Hey, NHI reuse. This is very tied to the next one, NHI, our human use of NHIs. But reuse, can anything else ever use this thing? Why is that? Why is this not a 1-to-1 ratio like everything else should be, right? If this thing has to authenticate, that means it has a password. That means something else is reusing the password. This is the shared service account problem all over again. Should a human ever touch this thing? I could argue that these go later in the talk when we talk about complexity of the systems themselves and technical complexity, but these are the questions up front you need to be asking. If it's yes, it's like, well, why is that? Is anyone having this conversation with your developers at all? Again, we can't do this by ourselves. We can't just say, here's the new policy. Here's the OWASP top 10, good luck. I know developers I have met in my travels at I talk at a lot of different tech conferences. I spoke at Dev Nexus this year, the premier Java community conference. I spoke at PHP Tech last week. Not CodeSec Days. What's that called? Anyway, Code Bash or Code Mash. Code Mash out in Cincinnati, Ohio, or Sandusky, Ohio. I talked to a lot of developers. Like, hey, what are you feeling about OWASP? Like, oh yeah, I got told about the top 10 thing one time, and that was like in a training like 2 years ago. They don't know. You can't just throw it over the fence at them. We need to go have this conversation like, wait, what are we doing about ownership of this stuff? What are we doing about long-lived secrets? What are we doing about ownership? Long-lived secrets? Well, that's the heart of my talk. I talk about this stuff a lot because I think about this stuff way too much. But long-lived secrets are the heart of so much of our problem that it's its own NHI number, NHI 7 on this list. What is the shortest amount of time we can allow access before it's going to be a penalty in your system to re-authenticate? Larry Garfield, one of the authors of the PHP language itself, challenged me on stage last week when I was talking about ephemeral secrets and like the ability to, some stuff I'll talk about later. I'm getting ahead of myself, but what's the shortest amount of time that's acceptable with this system in milliseconds that the off call can happen? Is that something you've ever stopped to think about? Your developers do. If they have to do 1 billion transactions over a month, 3 milliseconds adds up quick. We're talking days of machine time at this point. So what's the shortest amount? What is acceptable? Because we can't completely eliminate the risk. Somebody did an exploit earlier this year. They reused a token on GitHub Task Runner 1.3 seconds. They figured out they had a 1.3 second window to grab it from memory, reuse it, and escalate privilege, and they pulled it off. That seems like a reasonable amount of time to me, 1.3 seconds to like let something live. So you can't avoid every single risk, that's my point. But what's acceptable? Because this is a question for you as much as it is for them. Heart of this whole talk though, right here. If you see a plaintext credential, something is not right. There is one and only one actual exception I know to this, and that is upon the first creation of the token and you copied it into a vault system and you just happened, whatever that stupid system was, threw it out in plain text onto the clipboard and you accidentally pasted it somewhere. Okay, I'm not gonna be mad at you about that. But that is a very specific thing. That's why the asterisk is there. Other than that, if you see a plain text credential, something has gone wrong. Versus ChatGPT telling you specifically, put the plain text credential right here, because that's the example I just gave you, and all the vibe coders have no idea that you're not supposed to do that. Well, some of them do, they just don't care. So what are they supposed to do instead if their plaintext credential is not supposed to be there? Well, there's a lot of things you could do. You could go all the way to PKI for everything and digital certs, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Maybe tie it into Kerberos. Auth 2.0 something? That'd be fun. Your cloud providers have something in here with IAM rules. Secrets are the most common way we do it because it's the easiest. It's the way we've been doing it. I have a whole other talk about how we got there. We've treated machines like humans for so long we forgot they're not, and they shouldn't have passwords. But this is the actual problem. I use the word term secret, credential, API key, everything else you see on this list interchangeably because I give talks like this 30, 40 times a year and webinars, and I live in this world, breathe it. So secret to me is that all-encompassing term. Apologies, because I do know they're separate things. But again, this is the exact problem that we're trying to, your access token. That's not a call to a function, that's not a call to a variable, that's not a call to a vault, that's pasted in. Again, thank you ChatGPT from a week ago. We know this is a growing problem, not a shrinking problem at my company because we put out this report every year. You can read completely for free, the State of Secret Sprawl Report 2025. And this is for a prize, a game I built called Spot the Secrets. We're gonna play, if you know the answer, if you actually know this number, do not raise your hand, but if you wanna take a guess, how many hard-coded plain text secrets do you think we found out on GitHub, just in public, just in the year 2024? Like just only added to the year, in the year 2024, across the 1.4 billion commits that happened. I need some hands and some guesses. You know this number, I can't say the number. Yeah?
250,000.
250,000?
You said it was more than 1 billion commits?
Yeah, 1.4 billion commits.
500,000.
500,000? Anybody?
I'll say like 2 million.
2 million?
I meant 500 million, sorry.
500 million? 500 million is a pretty high number.
1%, you're like over 10 million?
10 million? Anybody else? Anybody else? It's 23.77 million. It's 4.6 of every repo that got touched last year. Because the math is good, but multiple commits against the same repo. So we're talking just total repos. 69.6 million contained some kind of hard-coded credential. 2 million, it was actually the number from 2020, from the 2020 that we published. So good job there. If you said the highest number, I'll trust you. Come up and get your prize later. I got a couple of them, so I can give them away. It's fine. That's why I brought them. Here's the one that hurts my feelings the most, though, because we send out an email to every single committer that commits in public. Every one of them. It's an automated system. We don't look at them. We're just like, hey, we detected a secret, committer ID, our committer email, here you go. Here's where exactly we saw it. You should probably do something about it. By the way, here's a link to our product, and here's a page that explains this is our completely free service we provide for you. Don't do it again, please. We try to validate every secret we find. The ones we found in 2022, we took a sample of the ones we tested as valid, meaning they worked, they returned to 200, or returned at least that they worked, got us in the system, non-intrusive calls. 11,000 of these we tested from 2022. In January, 70% of them still came back as valid. Again, hurts my feelings. We email people and like, hey, please don't do this, and they're still out there. There's some Fortune 100s on that list. Yeah. I'm not saying everybody should go and start dorking GitHub for pen testing money or bug bounty money, but it's there. 15% of all commit authors do this. This isn't just a new person problem. We can't just say this is vibe coders. This is not. This is not. This is everybody. Because it's hard. Developers get in a hurry. We have a theory, we have a working theory at GitGuardian that the vast majority of these are people that are in a hurry that were debugging something and forgot what they had changed. Based on the usage of it, some of it is just flat out dumb. We did this the dumb way. I won't even tell you that story. Somebody that works in security, their repos we found at a very large company last week and just doing some OSINT stuff. It's like all of his passwords for his actual Gmail were out on GitHub. And it's like, how does this guy have a job? But he does. No, it's hard. Now here's reality. We asked a bunch of people, like thousands of people to fill in our survey. Over 1,000 did this thing we released. And 75% of respondents said, we have strong confidence in our secret management capabilities. And then the same people said, yeah, it takes us about 27 days to remediate a leaked secret once we know about it. It's like, yeah, that's pretty strong. That's pretty great. Only 44% of developers that responded to the survey, they marked like, yeah, I'm also a developer, reported following security best practices, because again, security practice slows down. This last one, this ties into something I'll talk about later, but keep it in your brain. They're reporting an average of 6 distinct secret managers. That's not a free problem. If secret managers are completely free to run, CyberArk wouldn't be a company. HashiCorp Vault wouldn't be a thing. There's the community edition, not the free open source edition. It's free, just not open source anymore. I regret that. Not regret that. I'm mad about that personally. BSL. Anyway, so knowing that, this is why I lumped these problems in there. Vulnerable third-party NHIs. Because how are you connecting to your third parties? Long-lived secret? Guaranteed, because that's the stumbling block. Everything I'm about to talk about next, this is the stumbling block. I almost put the slide later. I should have, in retrospect. And insecure authentication. If you're rolling your own authentication, developer, don't. That's what we should be actually telling them. But they're going to say, okay, how do I do it instead? Well, what if we move you to a better authentication mechanism for intersystem communications that hopefully we can pick vendors who also do this. And this isn't the science fiction future. This is the stuff that gets me excited, that I'm like deep into protocols now, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Because this is the hope. This is the great hope. SPIFFE's been around a while. I doubt anybody here actually knows what SPIFFE is. Anybody know what SPIFFE is? You do? No, he's just scratched his head. Sorry. Like the youngest person here is going to lead us. Please. No, SPIFFE, secure production identity framework for everyone. And SPIRE is the runtime you can actually run right now. And if you're a Kubernetes fanboy, or fan person, I should say, this is how you should be approaching the problem, and it has been for the last 7 years, because this is exactly how Google does it on Google Cloud internally for the last decade. Basically, instead of giving a long-lived secret, I'm going to, at your time of birth, Kubernetes pod, I know enough information that you are in this IP, you are in this exact environment, you were born from this digest, you were born with these software levels of SALSA, supply chain levels of security attestation. You're born with a certain level of SALSA attestation. So I guarantee you that when you're born, I can give you, through an API, a certificate that says you are you, a driver's license, for lack of a better term. It says, here's your birth certificate and driver's license, hold on to this. We're gonna reissue one of these every 60 minutes or every 24 hours. And what you can do is you can go through a trusted gateway and explain, hey, I am me and I'm supposed to be here right now and I need to pick up some stuff from that database over there. And the gateway says, yep, you are you, I trust that implicitly. Now go over and talk to the database. And the database says, yep, you're you, but I don't know what to do right now. So it takes your ID and runs to the certificate authority and says, is this real? What can they actually do in here? And it comes back with a workload identity, or not workload identity, a workload certificate. Lack of a better term. There's a proper term, my mind's going blank on it right now. But you get a new key that goes and lets you do that thing for an ephemeral amount of time. That's a JOT. It's a X509, or a JOT that has a time to live set in seconds or minutes. Maybe hours. I wouldn't recommend it, but still you can do it that way. That's the trade-off of Larry Garfield's question of like, how often do you re-authenticate? But now we're not just authenticating, we're authorizing. We're starting to separate out that control plane of what, if just because you're in doesn't mean you can do it. Just because you're in, you're you, but now what can you do? Let's go back to the certificate authority and say, what can this person do in this circumstance? What can this entity do in this circumstance? Oh, you can also federate the certificate authorities, so if one gets corrupted and it gets kicked out, and all of its client holders are all kicked out, and then they restart over, and a lot of security built into this thing, built by some really smart people. There's a whole book. If you read no other books based on this talk, this is the one to read. It's 198 pages, and you will love it. It's called SPIFFE, a book, or Solving the Bottom Turtle, because we'll talk about solving the bottom turtle here in a minute. If you're like, I don't want to read a book, best talk I've seen about it ever was at Cloud Native Security Foundation, or Cloud Native Security Con last year. Matthias is one of the people that wrote the book, or worked on the book. I don't know if his name's on an author, but he's who taught me SPIFFE. And that talk uses cute Disney-like characters created by ChatGPT, so they're definitely not Disney characters. Disney cannot sue us. That is ChatGPT. So you're like, okay, but that's a weird cloud native thing. Well, who's going to do that, really? Because we haven't done it yet. It's been the new hotness for 7 years now. Why that? Well, because WIMSE exists now. And this has existed for a couple years. But does anybody not know what the IETF is? The Internet Engineering Task Force. Who here knows what HTTP is? Anybody? HTTP? You know, that's how we found out about this event and like how all of our internet traffic. These are the people that write the protocols. You know the request for comment, the RFCs that we all love quoting? You didn't do it by the RFC. Yeah, they're the people that write the RFCs. There's a working group called WIMSE, the Workload Identity and Multi-System Environments group. And they're on draft 4. We're almost finalizing, I say we, they're almost finalizing draft 4. There's a new idea, the specific JOT language just came up in the mailing list. Fun mailing list, it really is. Like, if you love nerd stuff, it's like great, almost daily updates about this stuff. And everything I just described about SPIRE and SPIFFE, they're building that into the standard. It's coming. It's not just coming, it's here. It's been here. So developers, instead of saying, hey, go figure out this weird, crazy permission set on your own and store the secret in a way that makes us happy in security, even though it's going to make your life a nightmare in the short run, we can say, just go namespace and allow list the services. And the CA will just magically do it from there. Oh, so this service should get to these databases and get to these resources, right? Cool, the CA will just say, all right, here's your authority that says you are you, and when you come back to me and says, hey, can they do this? I'll check the list and say, yep, let them in. This is really hard to read, but that's basically what I just described. This is an internal CA service. How do I know this is actually winning? Because May of this month, Kubernetes v133 introduced the idea of evolved image pools. Now, Kubernetes generate short-lived, automatically rotated tokens for service accounts if the credential provider it communicates with has opted into receiving a service account token for image pools. For a Docker container to get the image, you have to authenticate into whatever service gives you the image. The thing I just described that's like eyes glazed over detail of like, why do I care about this? That's how Kubernetes works now, and that's how you're supposed to be using it. I guarantee your developers aren't using it that way because this is from May 7th. We should be the ones enabling them and empowering them like, hey, there's a much better way to do this. And guess what? It's so much faster and so much easier. But until we do, they're going to keep doing this at scale. And it's going to get worse. The other path in the short term, because you're like, well, okay, that's great and all, but we don't live on the bleeding edge. We're still dealing with Windows somewhere Windows XP somewhere in the house. I had a poor soul who does operational technology security for a pretty large manufacturing company back at RSA. And he's like, I can't buy what you guys got, not my thing. I'm like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just taking a conversation, but how many XP boxes you got? And he's like, I got these 2 machines I just can't get rid of. Like, yeah, it is very real. So in that world, what can you do? Well, what if we pretended, the same way you're not your password, that every password should go to one machine identity? Hopefully, an identity doesn't have 15 API keys that go to it, or that it can use to authenticate to a system. We can pretend this is true, and if we start pretending that's true, we have this awesome world that we can open up, where we can just find all the secrets, put them in the right spots, give developers better ways to access them, and then rotate them at scale. This comes from a different talk I give that's literally about what I just said out loud on this slide, secret security end-to-end. I'm not going to give that whole talk, but here's the 3-minute version. If you don't know about a thing, you can't protect the thing. That is the basis of threat modeling. That's 101. So we know where your secrets pop up because we know this for years. It's in your code, it's in your config files, in your Jira, your Slack, Confluence, it's in text, secrets.txt, it's in env files, it's everywhere everybody's talking. All the things that happen around your code. We know this because I live in this world. Tons of tools out there to help you do this. Again, tooling is an important part of the system. I have a favorite on this list, but y'all know how secret detection generally works. You can textually tell, does this grant access programmatically in the system? It does, cool, that's a secret. Now let's do the math to figure out what it actually is and what it goes to. Put them in the right place, well, that is secret providers. If you are all in on AWS, congratulations, you won the lottery because they have an awesome, awesome system called AWS Secrets Manager. Not that Azure Key Vault or Google Secret Manager aren't great, I love them too, but AWS introduced the idea of secrets everywhere a couple years ago, and now you can use their secret manager across platforms. But if you're like, well, I got a lot of on-prem, I got a lot of everything, you're just gonna need to have a secret manager system at enterprise, a Vault or a Keyless or a CyberArk, to have a centralized way to reach all of your secrets programmatically. What I mean programmatically is literally this. You give it a path. The secret lives in a vault, encrypted at rest, and at runtime it gets pulled into memory when needed across the wire. Should never be seen by a human being, shouldn't be interceptable. If someone pops that box and actually dumps memory from that Kubernetes cluster, okay. But you have other problems in getting that specific key at that point. Your developers kind of are scared to death of this. So you, again, as security people can tell them, hey, this is just another API call. All you're doing is gonna make a name-specific API call into a service that we're gonna tell you how to do. We'll give you a path, and instead of that hard-coded credential, just swap out the path. The best talk I saw about how to actually re-architect your entire application so you don't just hold the secret there in memory forever was this one on blue-green deployments for credentials. 0 downtime credentials from last year's BSides Las Vegas. Kenton's an awesome dude. I could give a whole other talk about long-lived secrets, and I'm happy to talk to you about getting off long-lived secrets, but once we get to the world where we can make an API call for the authentication process, why does it need to be a long-lived secret? Oh, it doesn't. At that point, we can make it be anything else. But once we get the developer on board that, hey, we can just make this call to a thing instead of going down this stupid path of hard-coding long-lived secrets, how do we get them to do it? Because every security tool we throw at a developer, and this is why every developer I know hates shift left, is because it meant here's more work for you, here's more stuff on your plate, here's more stuff in your toolbox, here's more alerts that you're never going to look at, here's more blockers. At the same time, people that pay them say, go faster. I needed this yesterday, and we're eliminating 30% of your department because of AI. Go faster. I'm always going to be a developer advocate. It's in my heart, it's in my soul. No matter what my job is, I'm always going to advocate for the people that build code. And if we can meet them where they are, in their IDs, in their workflows, we're going to be in better shape. Git is the center of our universe. Not just security, but everyone's universe is Git. How many things today were referred to GitHub? How many talks you see that saw a reference to GitHub? All of them. There's code, that's where we store our code. That's how we communicate. That's how these systems work. That's how DevOps works. So what if you gave your developer a tool that said, hey, go crazy. Place your hard code credential in, and when you go to commit, we're going to auto-magically stop you from doing that commit. But instead of just stopping you, let's go and see if it's in the vault. If it's in a vault, let's return the path to you, and then just swap that in. Maybe using sed, maybe using X. Just swap it in that line within those are command line tools that let you manipulate text. We're going to let you, or we're going to swap that line for you, and then return you say, hey, does this look good to you? And let you commit that. This isn't science fiction, this works. The stored in the vault, that's a little shaky right now because of the way paths are derived in these vault systems. Like it's very specific, they're very long, and they're very specific to what they do. But this part, if it's in the vault, return that path instead. Yeah, we've already built that. That works. We've productized that at my company. It's not specific to my company. Like we built an entire reference architecture I'll talk about in a second. But that's great if you can get devs to use that, but good luck getting a dev to even put in a Git hook if they even know what Git hooks are. Hopefully they all know what Git hooks are. But if we can't shift that far left, what if we shifted to the pull request? Because there we should have some say in security. If there's a PR opened that has a hard-coded credential, go look in the vault, see if it's in the vault. If it's in the vault, come back with a call into the vault. Upon accepting that PR with the call to the proper path in the vault, let's rotate the secret behind the scenes and no one knows what it is anymore. Again, I've seen that in action. That's something not publicly available right now, but we're building it. Reference architecture. We called it Brimstone. CyberArk never called it Brimstone. They called it has my secret leaked connector. It's a dumb mistake, but not on their fault, not on our fault, just miscommunication somewhere. But exactly everything I just described, if you go to the speaker notes, if you get the slides, there's the link to this. And you can see exactly how this was built with us in CyberArk. Why is it a submarine? That's a whole other talk. But you move from the front to the back and you see all compartments. Everything before 1972, submarines all worked in a way that you could seal off any department from another and stop the ship from sinking. They all work differently now. It's all pressurized, and somebody explained it to me once. But old submarines, you would start in the front, you work your way back, and you could compartmentalize things. So you just move back. But if you don't find all your secrets, you can't do the other pieces. That's the point. Continual secret scanning, that makes sense. But if you give developers better tools to do this stuff, rotation's a trivial trick. That's what it is. Make the new one, test it, swap it in for the old one, test, make sure you didn't break nothing, clean up after. Yeah, I didn't write any of that because that comes directly from the hundreds of examples, not examples, the hundreds of actual things you can deploy from AWS that let you rotate at scale. All the lambdas, like these already exist, like you don't have to write these. You might need to modify them slightly, but you might want to do other things with them. But there it is. That's where that came from. Again, if you're all on AWS, congratulations, you won the lottery on this one. Everything else does it too. Other platforms, I guess. Alibaba, I think, does it. I don't know. I've never actually looked at their docs. Multi-cloud? Well, now we're starting to think, like, can we call that service and get a new API call or get a new key through an API call? It's 2025. The answer better be yeah, or find another service. And then if you're using like a platform like CyberArk, I use CyberArk a lot, but again, I'm kind of still mad at Hashi for the BSL thing. If you're using any of those platforms, there is a way to do it within the platform itself. If you're self-hosted, go nuts, script all you want, cron job it up. But call to those systems, get a new secret. Auto rotation isn't hard, but we treat it like it's this golden thing that's gonna save us. It's a stepping stone toward when we get to WIMSE and we do proper machine workload identity and the systems like WIMSE and SPIRE at scale. It's a stepping stone to get there. We can't get there without doing this stuff first, though. Because once we're at the point where we machine call in and it auto-rotates, it doesn't matter what it's rotating. It doesn't matter what it's calling. It could just keep reissuing that same workload identity. Almost done. The other bucket I almost called other, but I realized that's not the problem. The problem is technical complexity. Insecure authentication, I almost lumped in with technical complexity, but insecure auth isn't. Insecure auth is a different problem. Technical complexity is because we are building the most insanely complex things the human beings have ever abstracted in our brains ever. And what we have to ask is, hey, can we do this in a non-insecure way? And that sounds overly simplistic, I know. But at the same time, we say, hey, environment isolation, which is you're reusing that same NHI across multiple environments. So the easiest example is production and staging can both hit the same database using the same API key. That's environment isolation policy breach. It's not that much different than insecure cloud deployment configuration. The number one way in, according to Verizon's DBIR, breaches start is 22% were started with a credential or identity-related attack, and 20% were misconfiguration. As of this past one. Anybody here not read the DBIR? Go read the DBIR. It is great. It's the best thing Verizon writes. It's funny. It's footnote 13 references footnote 11 from the previous year. Oh, right. The answer to both, I think, is a mixture of technology. The first is CSPMs. Hopefully I don't have to explain what a CSPM is. I hope. go talk to Wiz if they're out there. Go talk to like these people. They're going to tell you what a CSPM is. That's not my job. I don't make a CSPM. I think they're cool. I love them. But that's going to help with the, hey, did we do this right? Did we misconfigure anything along the way? It's also going to tell you that other piece of what violations. Oh, is a human using this? Remember earlier when we said, hey, should anything else other be able to use this NHI? That's why you asked, because is this going to be in my policy? Hey, should a human ever be able to use this? Oh, not? Let's watch that. Not on here, but Falco is my favorite open source tool. They can start looking for those anomalies. Like, why is an IP address outside of our IP addresses ever calling this API? Oh, let's send up some red flags. But if we're going to deal with identity, specifically identity, then we got to step back and like, how do we manage human identities? Should we be managing machine identities with the same level of rigor and fervor and all those other words? Could you just plug your NHIs into Intra or into Okta? Okta's working on it. They would really love you to. They're not there yet. This is what I promised in the abstract, that we would get to this point. I said we would do it earlier, but I'm going to do it here at the end. Non-human identities has emerged in the last 2 years as the new hotness and what identity and access management cares about. It's the missing component in the IGA stack, the Identity Governance Access Stack. A non-human identity management group is a nonprofit dude, one guy, well, he's awesome. He has a team in the UK. We got together and said, we're gonna go talk to every person that has NHI on their website and figure out what they do and make you a giant map. My company's on there. I'm happy to talk to you in great detail about our version of this and why we think we're right. But we're all trying to answer those same questions. Who owns this? How do we deal with this problem that the big issue isn't the I, it's the A in IAM, what it can access, other people can access. And ultimately, what do we do about this problem set where it's so complex that none of their existing tool chains actually fix this? To go test your developers, like who owns the NHIs you're building? Who do you think owns them? What's your offboarding policy? All the other stuff I talked about. I'm not going to re-give you my entire talk right now. Because this isn't the future. This might be right now because of agentic AI and how fast it's being built and how fast it's being deployed. And if we don't get a grip on it, we can get a grip on it though. We got to have the right processes. You're in this room, you stayed in this room, and thank you very much for being here at my talk. I am trying to raise awareness about this as hard as I can, and I know I sound kind of nuts up here, like WIMSE and SPIRE and SPIFFE, and I'm throwing out acronyms you might be comfortable with. And I'm talking like, hey, developers have a hard life, but I'm trying to raise awareness because we put the right process in place and we have the right conversation, we get people the right tools at scale, we can actually start fixing security and stop proving how smart we are. If you see something in plain text secret, it shouldn't be in plain text, but that also means we have a long-lived secret. And we didn't authenticate in a way that's future-looking. We didn't do it in a scalable way. And we need to work on this together. Our models failed. You haven't failed as a developer. Our model failed together. Let's fix this. I'm Dwayne. I live in Chicago. I help people figure stuff out. Check out the repo podcast, the security repo podcast. I didn't even plug that earlier. Quickly, I work at GitGuardian. And thank you very much for coming to talk.